Hey, what's up, guys? I want to welcome you all to the first episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. I'm your host, Coach Dino. Let's get right into this topic. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. As always, I'll be your host, Coach Dino. Most of you will know me as Top Coach Dino from Instagram and YouTube. If you don't follow me, head over there now and follow at Top Coach Dino. This podcast is going to be kind of an extension of my Instagram stories, which seem to be popular, where I rant or discuss certain topics that are important to myself as a coach and as a practitioner. I am very passionate about natural sport, breaking up some of the myths that come with the fitness industry, and just trying to promote very basic education when it comes to health, nutrition, and sustainability. So I really focus on the basics, and I try to teach both my clients and my followers systems that are easy to follow, sustainable, and practical for your entire life. Because you got to remember that even though a system might seem optimal, so works, is the best case in studies and stuff like that, the most important thing is whether or not it's sustainable. And a lot of times the optimal practice isn't going to be sustainable in the long run. So I'm a personal trainer and a coach, and I had my first client in 2004. So I've been personal training for almost 14 years. I got my first real gig as a full-time personal trainer in a commercial gym setting in 2009 after I finished university, and I amassed a very large client base working for this fitness center. It wasn't until 2015 that I left and went on to be a freelance personal trainer, training out of several gyms around the city here, doing online consulting and coaching, and then eventually starting my own facility with my wife in 2017. We opened One Family Fitness Center, and it's a fitness center that is designed for families to be a non-intimidating and safe place to do strength training and conditioning. So my experience with the fitness industry itself dates back long before social media ever existed. I picked up my first weight when I was about 15. It was a requirement of my time in judo, and I was competing at the national level. I needed to put some muscle mass on, and my coach had me do some pretty basic rudimentary resistance training. So I was doing bench press, pull-ups, deadlifts, bent over rows, lat pull downs, big compound lifts in order to put some weight on. And I graduated high school at 5'9", at about 185 pounds. And I was in relatively good shape. I was fighting in the minus 81 kilogram class, which I believe is about 178 or 175 pounds. So I would have to cut weight for that even at 17 years of age. After my time in judo, which I did until I was about 25, I got into mixed martial arts and did a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai kickboxing, and eventually fought pro for a couple fights in mixed martial arts. Lucky for me, I got out of it before I ever got a concussion or seriously injured, but I did actually tear my bicep and shoulder in my last fight when I refused to tap for an arm bar. So lesson learned, always tap, because that injury is what still gives me grief to this day, 10 years since my last fight. So as well, I'm a father and a husband, and I'm a very family oriented person, so that's my priority when it comes to my focus. And then my second focus would be working, training clients, running the gym, and then my other focuses right now are bodybuilding and powerlifting. So I got into natural bodybuilding at the age of 30, kind of at the push of some friends. Up until that time, I had pretty much been training since I was 15, so almost 15 years, without really ever dieting per se. So I had a lot of mass for somebody who's 5'9". I believe I stepped on stage in 2014 at IDFA Prairie Classic. at about 178, 180 pounds. Didn't know how to pose and had a really terrible tan, but was still able to come out and win the overall at the IDFA, and then I've won many shows since. I've done concurrent bodybuilding seasons every year since. So one of the things people will tell me is you can't compete in natural bodybuilding every year. Well, this is my 5th year, and I think that I'm getting better every year. Just streamlining the process, gaining less body fat in the off season, and being more efficient with the way that I diet. As you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, I have started to lose some body fat, and you can tell in my face that I am slowly losing weight. So this is my 5th bodybuilding season. I've done 10 bodybuilding shows and about 6 powerlifting meets in the last 4.5 years. My wife has also competed in powerlifting and in bodybuilding in the last 2 years. I believe she's done 4 bodybuilding shows and about 4 powerlifting meets. And both of us have lucked out and done really well. Yeah, we live the life, and we try to promote both the things that we teach to our clients and our members, but we also live by example, and we raise our kids with fitness and health in mind, saying that we are very big promoters of natural sport. We are the promoters of the INBF Winnipeg, which is happening in 2 weeks here in Winnipeg. So it's a natural bodybuilding show. This is our first year as promoters, and it's going to be the largest show we've ever had, with the biggest classes and the largest amount of sponsors. So we're very excited for that. But on top of that, we like to promote knowledge and promote the simple basics. So the old principle of keeping it simple. Fitness, specifically fat loss, is a simple thing. The fitness industry likes to overcomplicate it. You have to remember that I've been doing this long before Instagram, Facebook even existed, before people were jumping up and being personal trainers just because it was cool and they wanted to get clients and pictures and likes and all that kind of stuff. But fat loss is easy and it's simple, and the industry overcomplicates it. And I'm hoping that through this podcast I can present the listeners with some very good information from lots of experts in many fields. We have experts lined up in academia, research, very popular practitioners, some coaches, as well as lots of high level and well-known athletes as well. So if you have any suggestions for guests, anybody you want to see on the podcast, any topics you want us to cover, make sure that you comment below, that you send us an email. This podcast is for you. It's also for me. It's a way to expand my knowledge base. It's a way to network. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I want to take this opportunity as somebody who's running the podcast to be able to ask a lot of questions that I don't get the answers to listening on other podcasts. So do take advantage of the fact that I will be reaching out to you for content, suggestions, and feedback. So I guess getting back to the social media aspect, today in this episode I wanted to cover how one of the things about the fitness industry is that it's one of those things that's hip and cool. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this before it was ever cool to do this. I still don't suggest that people take personal training or coaching as a career. It's a tough career. You have to work a lot. You don't make any money, and it has to be something that you enjoy doing, that you're passionate about, and you have to be very patient, both with your client base, but also with tire kickers and potential clients as well. So people are always going to want fast results. They see things on social media now, they see things on YouTube, and they expect that this can happen to them. They want to lose the 50 pounds in 3 months kind of thing and keep it off. Yes, fat loss is simple, but the human psyche, the human condition is not simple, and many of the problems that arise with weight gain and weight loss boil down to psychology and to habit. And those are things that we're going to tackle in this podcast as well. On top of that, we're going to talk about motivation, mindset, and we'll have some experts talking about how having a certain mindset and positive outlook can also influence your success in the fitness industry. So stay tuned for that. So my biggest complaint with the fitness industry is how deceptive it is, and we're hoping that we can come across as kind of a source for you guys that's a little less biased, a little less driven towards marketing you as a commodity. Yes, I'll be selling my way of practice, my point of view to you, but I hope to keep an open mind when it comes to my guests, and I can ask them questions that you can benefit from getting some good, interesting information from. I want to be able to pick the minds of these guests, increase my knowledge base. I started off as just a bro who lifted, reading in muscle magazines and getting information from coaches that really had no business coaching me. And I actually got injured many times as a young athlete because they didn't know much about programming, the stresses that resistance training imposes on the body, recovery, deloads, and all that kind of stuff. The things that we've kind of wisened up a little bit about in the last 10 years here. I've been injured, shoulder injuries, hip injuries, stuff like that in training because coaches didn't know any better. So most people are ahead of where I was when I started, just because the internet exists and just because you can search a lot of these things on YouTube and you can listen to a lot of great podcasts and find a lot of really good content on social media. The unfortunate thing is that most of that good content is muted and masked by really terrible content marketed by supplement industries and by coaches and coaching companies that are looking for easy targets when it comes to clients. So they're looking for people who are desperate, who have low self-esteem and body image issues, and are looking for a quick fix. And that's not how we run our practice. It's about changing people's outlooks, about coming up with ways to develop intrinsic motivation, developing sustainable practices and skills so that these changes that we make in the short term can be maintained in the long term because we've learned new skills and we're able to auto-regulate and kind of adapt as we age, right? I always tell new clients that my goal is to have you as self-sufficient as possible as soon as possible. So, the sooner you rely less on me as a coach, the more I've done an adequate job. And I find that by having this approach, people tend to keep me around for 5 years, for 10 years, less because they don't know what they're doing and more because they can appreciate that I'm ever increasing my knowledge base, and they're always looking for new information, they're looking for accountability, and they're looking for that camaraderie that comes from having someone be your coach. So instead of just being a trainer and trying to retain clients by keeping them dependent on you, I find that my approach of making your clients self-sufficient is a more sustainable approach because you get them going out into the community and telling people how much they've learned. People will ask them questions. Oh, why do you do this? And they'll be able to explain it, but then they'll also be wise enough to know that, well, they don't know enough to tell somebody else how to do it, so they'll send them my way. So again, trying to keep things simple, trying to avoid extremism, right? Trying to avoid blanket statements like certain things are bad, certain things are good. Everything can sit on the spectrum, I think, in terms of both types of training, whether it's resistance training and cardio. It's all a spectrum. Like, where do you see your goals and what's going to work for achieving those goals, but also food, things like food quality, macronutrient content, total calories. All that stuff can sit on a spectrum where we're a little flexible on each end in terms of, well, some things need to be consumed that are healthy and clean, but it's okay to eat things that are quote unquote unclean, or here's your calorie range. One of the things that I see a lot on social media is this idea that flexible dieting is the new way to live, but you have to hit your macros. Well, if you're trapped by these numbers, it really isn't that flexible after all. So giving people ranges and targets and goals that are flexible in themselves, that's true flexibility. So many times, people are like, oh, I have 2 grams of something left. How do I get that? Well, you have 3 options. You can obsess over it, try to find something that's 2 grams of carbs. You can forget about it and realize that it doesn't matter. You don't have to eat those last 2 grams. Or you can be realistic and say, well, maybe I'll have something that has 20 grams because I'm still hungry, and know that that carbohydrate goal should be kind of like a flexible goal anyways, and we're the sum of averages, not exacts. or absolutes. I have lost 30 to 40 pounds 6 times in the last 4 years because of bodybuilding, and it had nothing to do with being 100% accurate with macronutrients or calorie goals, but being flexible in my approach. And yes, I had targets for calories in, calories out, but also learning that you can be flexible on both of those allows it to be more sustainable, and gives you some peace of mind, and also reduces stress, because the more stressed out you are about the practices that you're employing, the harder they are to adhere to, and also the more maybe physiological impacts that these protocols can have on you, because stress in itself can disrupt homeostasis, that balance in your body, and you can get undesired results. So again, trying to stay away from extremes, trying to stay away from blanket statements or absolute statements, and just providing some sound advice based on what I would like to say is an evidence-based approach. I know that's very maybe cliche or trendy to say right now, but my belief is that if you look at what an evidence-based approach is, it's taking your education, which I do have quite a bit of, taking your experience both in a practical work sense, so what I've experienced through clients and also myself, and then also your observational and deductive evidence based on what you've seen other people do, and information like podcasts and video logs, a lot of athlete video logs. It's a great way to get some more information, to have a larger sample size of clients, as to see what other people are doing, right? So taking all that information and then deducing a plan for the individual, right? So getting feedback from that person as well. That makes the approach truly evidence-based, and knowing that you can change your approach anytime. It has to be flexible, both in design and in practice. I think I should wrap that up for the introduction, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys where I'm at and what this podcast is going to be for you. It's going to be a tool. It's going to be a hub for information. It's going to be your opportunity to ask the experts questions, and hopefully you get as much out of it as I plan to get out of it. I will be posting this every Sunday on YouTube as well as on iTunes. I'll post the web address in the Instagram and on the Facebook page, so make sure you go subscribe to both of those, and be sure to give a thumbs up and rate it on iTunes, and share it with all your friends, and let them know that this is going to be your source for fitness, health, natural sport. So thank you for listening today, and if you like the video, subscribe to the channels, and we'll see you guys as always in the gym.